Private Joseph Delaney. We have had supper, and my wife and I are sitting on our porch. It will not be dark for an hour yet, and my wife has brought out some sewing. It is pink and full of lace, and it is something she is making for a friend of hers who is going to be married soon. All about us are our neighbors, sprinkling their lawns or sitting on their porches as we are doing. Occasionally, my wife and I speak to some friend who passes and bows or stops to chat for a moment, but mostly we sit silent. I am still thinking of the book which I have just completed. I say to myself, I have finished my book at last, but I wonder if I have done what I set out to do. Then I think, this book started out to be a record of my own company, but I do not want it to be that now. I want it to be a record of every company and every army. If its cast and its overtones are American, that is only because the American scene is the one that I know. With different names and different settings, the men of whom I have written could as easily be French, German, English, or Ukrainian for that matter. I wish there was some way to take these stories and pin them to a huge wheel, each story hung on a different peg until the wheel was completed. Then I would like to spin the wheel, faster and faster, until the things of which I have written took life and were recreated and became part of the whole, flowing toward each other and into each other, blurring and then blending together into a composite whole, an unending circle of pain. That would be the picture of war, and the sound that the wheel made, and the sound that the men themselves made as they laughed, cried, cursed, or prayed would be, against the falling of walls, the rushing of bullets, the exploding of shells, the sound that war itself makes. We had been silent for a long time, and then my wife spoke. I'd take out the part about shooting prisoners. Why? I asked. Because it is cruel and unjust to shoot defenseless men in cold blood. It may have been done a few times, I'm not denying that, but it isn't typical. It couldn't have happened often. Would a description of an air raid be better? I asked. Would that be more humane? Would that be more typical? Yes, she said. Yes, that happened many times, I understand. Is it crueler then for Captain Matlock to order prisoners shot because he was merely stupid and thought the circumstances warranted that, than for an aviator to bomb a town and kill harmless people who are not even fighting him? That isn't as revolting as shooting prisoners, said my wife stubbornly. Then she added, you see, the aviator cannot see where his bomb strikes or what it does, so he is not really responsible. But the men in your story had the prisoners actually before them. Oh, it is not the same thing at all. I began to laugh with bitterness. Possibly you are right, I said. Possibly you have put into words something inescapable and true. Then my wife reached out and took my hand. You think I'm hard and unsympathetic, she said, but I'm not really, darling. I sat silent after that, watching the Ellis children across the street, shouting and laughing and playing on their lawn. It was early June, and there was a faint breeze carrying with it the smell of spiced pinks and Cape jasmine. Gradually it got darker, and my wife put away her sewing, yawned, and rubbed her eyes. All about us were the green, well-kept lawns of our neighbors, with flowers in bloom and shrubs banked against walls and fences. The sight of this green flowing smoothness made me think somehow of old battlefields which I have seen. You can always tell an old battlefield where many men have lost their lives. The next spring the grass comes up greener and more luxuriant than on the surrounding countryside. The poppies are redder, the cornflowers more blue. They grow over the field and down the sides of the shell holes and lean, almost touching, across the abandoned trenches in a mass of color that ripples all day in the direction that the wind blows. They take the pits and scars out of the torn land and make it a sweet sloping surface again. Take a wood now, or a ravine. In a year's time, you would never guess the things which had taken place there. I repeated my thoughts to my wife, but she said it was not difficult to understand about battlefields. The blood of the men killed on the field and the bodies buried there fertilize the ground and stimulate the growth of vegetation. That was all quite natural, she said. But I could not agree with this too simple explanation. To me, it always seemed that God is so sickened with men and their unending cruelty to each other that he covers the place where they have been as quickly as possible.